What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome back to our second Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and as I mentioned before on the NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3 predictions, I've got Callum Wiggins with me. What's up, Callum?
Yay, it's the saltiest party of the summer.
Yeah, we are going to be breaking down SummerSlam 2017, and we are not happy campers for a lot of these things.
If you enjoy bitching and moaning about professional wrestling, you've come to the right podcast.
Yeah, we were very positive for the most part on NXT TakeOver. So if you think that we are going to hate everything this weekend, then listen to that. We'll prove you wrong. But there are a lot of problems with SummerSlam. And not everything is a problem. I'll say that well in advance. There are some things I'm looking forward to. But holy shit, do they have some issues.
Yes, I will go into them all in great detail, but the build for this pay-per-view as a whole has been lackluster, to say the least, with a lot of these matches seemingly just thrown together at the last minute just to get certain people on the card.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like they really don't want to put any effort into some of those feuds, even the feuds that look like they've been planning this for a while. It's kind of like they're just sort of going, guys, just let us tell you that the match is happening and then watch it, please. Like, they don't really want to build stories for some of these, and the stories that they are building are shit. Like, man, it's just, I don't even know where to start, but we might as well start with the pre-show, and we know 2 matches already have been announced for the pre-show. The Cruiserweight Championship is one of them. Akira Tozawa is going to be defending against Neville, which, here's a problem that I have with this. We've seen Akira Tozawa versus Neville. How many times now? 4?
Well, it depends how much you watch 205 Live, which I assume in your case is a lot.
Yeah, I watch it every single week, so I know that these people have had their matches, and I know that we've had their match at the last pay-per-view, and that we were setting up this whole thing with Aria Daivari, and, is it Aria or Aria? Aria, I think. And we had this match this week, even. And I can't help but feel like they purposely put this on Monday Night Raw because they thought to themselves, shit, we don't want to have the title change happen at SummerSlam, and we don't want to continue this feud going forward. Or maybe that's not even the case. And they thought to themselves, how about we do this? We put the match on Monday Night Raw. We bill it as, you guys are getting SummerSlam early. Make sure you watch Raw. This is going to be great. And we have a title change to force there to be a reason for them to fight again because they have the automated rematch. And that's lazy. And
yeah,
I like Akira Tozawa, and I'm okay with him being champion.
Yeah.
And I like Neville, and I'm okay with him being champion. But it'll really piss me off if they switch the title again. And it'll really piss me off if they also have another match between these two. Whether or not Neville gets the belt back. I'm beyond this feud at this point. It's time for somebody new. And if they want to have Tozawa defend it against somebody new, okay. If they want to have Neville win it back and move on to somebody else, okay. You never should have just put the belt on Tozawa to begin with at that point because they keep switching these titles around and it's annoying me. And I'm kind of just thinking to myself at this point, no wonder the Cruiserweight title is on the pre-show. It always is. And nobody's going to want to care.
No. You kind of can tell when the creative team is starting to scramble for ideas and are starting to worry about how much people are interested in the product because they start switching titles left and right. And this was, I think, maybe one last desperate attempt to get people interested in the Cruiserweight division and the Cruiserweight title match by having a title change on Raw. Because then you're kind of forced to watch it. You don't have to go to 205 Live because, let's face it, a lot of people aren't watching 205 Live. I like Tozawa. I think he's gotten a lot more character since being part of the Titus O'Neil crew. But I preferred Neville as champion. I think having him lose it on Raw was a bit of an underwhelming end to a really good run with the title. I think the rematch at SummerSlam, it's very possible that Neville wins it back, in which case the title change was nothing more than shock value just to try and get a few more people to tune into 205 Live, which I don't think it probably would have worked.
The key words there are a few more people, because if
Yeah.
people aren't giving a shit about the Cruiserweight division already, a title change isn't going to make them change their mind.
It seems to be a running theme of the Cruiserweight division is that feuds go on far too long.
Mm-hmm.
And there's too many matches that we've seen so many times beforehand. I mean, why is Gran Metalik not in matches or feuds anymore? Or why is Lince Dorado barely being used? Why do we always have to see Rich Swann versus TJP or Brian Kendrick versus Jack Gallagher? Why are they doing that over and over and over again?
Mm-hmm.
That's why people aren't interested. It's not so much due to the style being reduced. It's due to the fact that they have
12 guys.
They have 12 guys, and then they just keep in the same feud for 3 or 4 months in a row. Then they switch around, and then they're back into another feud 3-4 months, and then they're probably after that back into the feud of the people they were originally feuding with.
Right.
And I don't get why they can't make it more interesting. I don't get why. Well, I get why it's on the pre-show, because it just doesn't have as much drawing power as other matches. And it'll be a good match because these two put on good matches.
But nobody will care. And by the time the first match on the main show is done, people will already forget that the Cruiserweight title match happened.
Yeah, whoever wins it. And I wouldn't be surprised if Neville won it back. I might actually go as Neville as my prediction. Just because I want to see him and Cedric Alexander feud for the title, because I think that's the...
Yeah.
If there's any money feud out of the Cruiserweight division, it's that match. And I just don't think Tozawa can feud with anyone that's that interesting. I mean, who's Tozawa going to feud with? Tony Nese? Or Drew Gulak? Or TJP? They're okay. They're nothing special.
I am a little bit worried that that they're going to keep the belt on Tozawa and the feud's going to be Tony Nese, because they seem to be pushing him a lot. Now, I don't dislike Tony Nese, and I like Akira Tozawa, but I don't think that there's anything to that feud.
I mean, they're very good in the ring. They're both very good in the ring. Tony Nese has no character and no charisma.
No, he doesn't. And this whole idea of him coming out and just talking during his entrance is coming off awkward as hell. But
he's doing that now.
Oh yeah, he comes out and he just starts saying like about his abs and stuff, and it's really strange. But
at this point, I'm like a month away from saying, okay, just bring in Hornswoggle, have him win the title, and then kill it off.
Well, they've got people that they can be putting in that Cruiserweight division that could be kind of interesting. Like Enzo Amore is one. And they could bring Aleister Black up, and they could do Kalisto is somebody who's kind of like, he's not really, he doesn't have a good character and stuff like that, but James Ellsworth is a dude that's in that that range.
They have a lot of potential. They just don't do anything with it. They don't push the boat out for it. Which I can kind of...
Finn Balor.
Yeah.
I mean, they're never going to do it, but,
no. I mean, I can understand why to a certain extent, because it's a show that's exclusive for the WWE Network. They've already got to put out 5 hours of television a week for Raw and SmackDown. Of course, the writers are going to probably sit on their heels a little bit on the Cruiserweight division, which I know they shouldn't do, because they're paid to write and be creative and come up with interesting ways to present wrestling. But if there's any show that's going to be put on the back burner, it's going to be 205 Live. Not that that's an excuse.
No, it's just that's how it's going to be.
Yeah. But there are a lot of options they can take, and hopefully they do something more creative in the future. As for this match,
it's something either that that they really need to... this sounds condescending, but it's not that hard.
No. Well, the Cruiserweight Classic wasn't rich with storylines, and it was just people having good matches and being towards an end goal. You could just have the Cruiserweight show be about people having matches and ranking up and ranking down based on wins and losses.
Yeah, they could try that out, and it's something different, and people will feel like it's a different type of division, and they could actually try to do a little bit of what TNA did, where it was this person's got X amount of wins, so they're number 5 on the ranking, and I'd be willing to try it out for a little bit. And if it doesn't work, they can go back to the normal thing, and You know what I mean? Like, they could try different stuff instead of just saying, well, we need to have some certain people feud with whatever. But I'm worried that we're going to get Tony Nese, Tozawa, and what worries me about that isn't necessarily that that's going to be like a one-match thing. It's that it'll be a 4-month thing.
Yeah, of course it will be. It's a cruiserweight feud.
So I'm hoping that if Tozawa keeps the title, that they go with Noam Dar or TJP instead, or they bring up somebody.
Yeah.
Because we've already done the Kendrick thing, and the Kendrick thing versus Tozawa was fun, but they did it already, so they can't do it again.
No.
And if Neville wins the title, it's got to be Cedric Alexander.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to ask, if Neville does lose this match, can you see him going to the quote-unquote main roster?
Yeah, I could see them switching him back over.
Because I don't see what else he can do if he's not champion in that division. I know he could obviously have other feud stuff, but it wouldn't feel right for Neville to be there without the championship involved.
I could see them keeping him in 205 Live for a bunch of months, and then realizing that they didn't have anything for him else, and then moving him back over to like SmackDown or something. But I don't think he'll move over soon. I think if he loses this, he'll still just kind of be hanging around in the Cruiserweight division, and he'll just start feuding with Cedric Alexander or somebody. And it'll just kind of be one of those random ass things.
Yeah, that could definitely happen.
Maybe like him versus Grand Metalik or something, just to give Metalik somebody.
Yeah, just get him on TV. I think he was the runner-up of
9 months.
Yeah, I think he was the runner-up of the Cruiserweight Classic, and he's done fuck all since he came onto WWE.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm really, really glad that TJP is the one that won that, but if they're going to do something with Grand Metalik, they need to figure it out, and he's not somebody that's good with promos, so they can't really go back with that, and I actually like Lince Dorado better as far as, like, masked people, and then you got Kalisto who could be brought in instead, and the whole thing just kind of seems like sort of a mess, but yeah, to start things off, we're already like 12 minutes or so into this, and it's just one match to bitch and complain about. But I am not really, really digging this Cruiserweight title match, and I wouldn't have been really too upset if they would have bumped it from the card and replaced it with something else, even though at that point I would have been upset because they would have put so little effort into the Cruiserweight thing that it would have been like, oh, you can't even figure out a good Cruiserweight match for this. But if they would have had a triple threat with these two and Arya Daivari, I think it would have been better. And I guess now it's just sort of like, all right, well, go out there and have a good match because we know the feud's not really great. And let's move the fuck on from this, you know?
Yeah. Let's warm up the crowd for us and then go back to your like little hole.
Right. And then please put in more effort in the Cruiserweight division and everything else. Because one of the things that bugs me about this fucking card is there's so many rematches. And that's kind of the same with the other match that's on the pre-show. It's the New Day against the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team Championship. They had a match at Battleground. They had a match at, I think, Money in the Bank. And there's still not even a stipulation to this. There's no gimmick. It's just the third match. And then we've seen them pair up, and it's like the New Day, 2 of the members fight the Usos on SmackDown. So it's like we've seen this match at least 4 times, 5 times, 6 times maybe. Why do I care? Like, this is SummerSlam. This is supposed to be the second biggest pay-per-view of the year. And the best that they can do is to just go, yeah, but we don't want to change and to do a new feud. It's going to take too much work to write a different story. How about we just keep having them fight? I like the New Day. They're my favorite tag team of like the past 7 years. And I like the Usos. But shit, do something different, you know?
I'm also pissed about this match, but for an entirely different reason. I'm actually happy that these two are facing each other on the card. I know it's a rematch matches that we've seen beforehand, but it's a really good match that you know that is going to deliver. Their match at Battleground was the best match on the card. That obviously there wasn't much competition, but even if there had been good matches on that show, but this probably would have stood head and shoulders above the rest of them. I think the Usos are in the form of their entire careers. They're showing more character, more intensity. They're being better in the ring than they ever have been before. And the New Day are always very entertaining and can produce excellent matches. My issue with it is the fact that it's on the pre-show. They saved Battleground. Obviously, Battleground went down in flames regardless, but if there was one saving grace about Battleground, it was this match. And this is the reward they get, a pre-show match on SummerSlam. I know a lot of people say, we've seen this match multiple times, and that's a perfectly valid thing to bring up. But this match was really good, and this feud has been very good in my opinion, and it's not getting the recognition that it deserves by having a kickoff match. Whereas Big Show versus Big Cass, which we'll talk about later, is like a match that's got no heat, nobody's interested in it, and that's going to go on the main card because it's got a shark cage involved.
Even worse, I think, Orton Rusev.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, even Cena, Corbin. I know you're always going to put Cena on the main card, but there are so many other matches on this card that have got even less intention than this and less thought being put into it. And this is the match that gets bumped to it just because, I'm assuming just because it's SmackDown and it's the tag titles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just really not right. It annoys me that this is on the kickoff show. They deserve a lot better than that.
Well, who do you think's gonna take away the titles? Do you think New Day are retaining, or do you think that the Usos are winning it back?
New Day have got to retain, I think. I think, like you say, this has been done quite a while. Even though the matches have always delivered and been good, I think it's time that they move on to separate things to do on the roster.
Same here.
But the question then becomes what happens to the New Day or the Usos. There's not really a lot to choose from. I assume the Usos would probably go into a feud with the Hype Bros. And then the New Day would face the Ascension or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's maybe Sanity if they come up. Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I could see them do something with Breezango in a kind of weird face versus face thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing that says that they can't.
Yeah. Or they could be just thrown together tag team like, I don't know, either the Singh brothers or Kanellis and Rusev or something along those lines. I don't know.
So here's the other thing about the pre-show that has me kind of a bit weirded out. We know that there's two kind of missing elements from this card. One of them is not something that they can really advertise ahead of time, which is the Goldust factor. He's said that he's going to be paying attention and watching SummerSlam, and that he would, what was his exact wording? Something like unveil his next big attraction or something?
Yes, I think that was the wording.
Now, we didn't see anything about that on Raw this week. And WWE does have a tendency of saying things are going to happen and then not doing it and just hoping that we forget about it. I mean, we had like Rusev say, I'm not going to show up until I get a title match at Money in the Bank. And then he just randomly showed up at like Battleground.
Yeah.
But they've purposely been so vague about this Goldust thing that it could be so many different options. I mean, he literally threw out the idea of maybe a new tag team partner, maybe a protege, maybe a woman to work with, maybe a feud. It's like, okay. And he'll unveil his attraction or whatever he had said, or he's paying attention, or he's watching it or whatever. So they could go in a multitude of different options. And I think what would be the most interesting to me is if they do have a segment, and if he does kind of show off as like he's paired up with like Summer Rae or Darren Young or Velveteen Dream or something, either as like a tag team or a stable or some kind of mentor relationship or something like that. But what I'm expecting is nothing. I'm fully expecting them to just completely ignore this, and then on Monday night, either on Monday Night Raw or even further, for them to address it later on. I think they'll either just not do anything, or he'll come out on Monday Night Raw and say, I watched SummerSlam and now something, something, something.
Oh, you're actually thinking that they're actually going to follow through with this?
Possibly.
I think this is.
I'm putting
I think.
the slightest bit of confidence that they'll follow through with it, and a good chance that they're just not going to do anything.
Yeah, I'm thinking this is the new Emelina.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be the thing that they build up for a couple of months, where Goldust keeps saying, "Oh, I'm going to be watching this show very closely," and he maybe sits in a director's chair while watching matches or something along those lines, and then it either comes up with nothing, or it's going to be something really disappointing.
Or it'll be like this whole Fashion Files thing where they're like making it up on their, on the fly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would like to think that it's going to be something new and exciting, and it doesn't have to be like a new person coming on the roster. It could be someone who's already on the roster that they want to repackage or give. I mean, Goldust is one of the most experienced members of the roster and someone that you could learn a lot from. So it'd be a big opportunity for somebody.
Darren Young's the only guy I can think of, because he is cleared to return and he's got nothing going for him.
No, and I think Darren Young could pull that off. He's obviously worked with Bob Backlund before, and I think that worked to an extent. They just didn't want to commit to it. The only issue would be of course, they paired the gay guy up with Goldust.
Right, yeah. But they could even have some fun with that, too, because it could be like, Goldust was this, like, androgynous kind of character, and then it could be like, it could kind of be one of those things where it's, like, unsettling, and you're like, ugh, I don't know if I should boo this, that kind of thing. They're kind of bad guys, but it seems, like, homophobic to boo, and then that could be kind of the most interesting part about it,
I think Bobby Roode could be a good option. I don't think Bobby Roode needs Goldust, but it could be a way of, like, just getting him kick-started on the roster. Just as, like, this big star in NXT. He was the biggest star in NXT, and now he's making his grand premiere in WWE. And I'm going to be the one directing. I don't have a
whole lot of faith that this will be good, no matter what it is.
No, but I'm trying to be positive. It's hard, I know, but
yeah, it's like the most positive thing I can be about it is maybe they have a plan. It's like, it's not even necessarily maybe they have a good plan. Maybe they do have a plan. I don't even think that they do, though.
Oh, God, it's gonna be Blue Meanie, isn't it? He's back.
I wouldn't be shocked if they did it. Like at this point, the way that they've been writing things these past couple of months, and what really pisses me off, and this applies to SummerSlam in a lot of different ways, not just the Goldust thing. We had heard for such a long time, oh, they're in a lull right now because they really just don't know what to do until they start building for SummerSlam. And this is what they were building towards?
Yep.
So
exactly.
I don't put a lot of faith in WWE's writers right now. I don't know if it's the writers themselves not being good enough, or if it's like some kind of weird thing backstage where it's like they've got a lot of ideas, but Vince McMahon or Kevin Dunn or somebody like keeps shooting them down and they have to keep changing plans, or if they're just lazy or what. But it's like, I would not be shocked at all if this Goldust thing just doesn't manifest at all. Or if they wait until Monday Night Raw because they didn't realize that they had too little time on the card,
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it showed up on SummerSlam. Yeah, I'd be surprised if it shows up on SummerSlam.
And another thing that's annoying me about SummerSlam, and this is something that I think is going to be applicable to the pre-show, what's going on with the Intercontinental Championship?
Oh, God, yeah, that is a real stick in the mud situation. The Intercontinental Championship hasn't been defended on any of the big four shows so far this year. The Miz is doing amazing work to try and keep this belt relevant and trying to keep himself relevant almost, because his promo segments and even matches on Raw have been great, in my opinion. I think he's done some really good work with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, and now he's doing his damnedest to try and get Jason Jordan over, which is probably the toughest task in his entire career. And he doesn't get any reward for it. Mm-mm. He was in the Royal Rumble. We didn't do anything there of note. He was at WrestleMania in a match that was utterly ridiculous and made him look like a fucking idiot. And yet he still takes it because he's the most loyal company guy they probably have.
And what's weird about this is they haven't even announced a match yet.
He's not going to have a match. He's not going to have a match at SummerSlam.
Well, this is what I think is going to happen. I think that there's a twofold option here. Either they do have The Miz versus Jason Jordan, and they do some kind of thing where it's like The Miz complains backstage to Kurt Angle during the pre-show, and he's like, how do you have a guy like me, and you don't put me on the card? And then he goes, all right, you want a match? You do have a match. You're going to defend the title against Jason Jordan. And he goes, what? I don't want to fucking defend my title. That's fucking ridiculous. And then they insert that into the card.
Yeah.
Or whether it's the pre-show or the main show. Or, and this is something I'm worried about more, they have the same kind of setup, and they go, all right, well then, The Miz, you are going to have a match. It's going to be you and Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel against Jason Jordan and the Hardy Boys. And
yeah, because we didn't just do that on Raw.
Thing on that.
Yeah, we didn't just do that on Raw.
I think it's going to happen.
Well, they have to have the Hardys in some capacity. The fact the Hardys aren't on the show is weird. I know they should have been on because they should have been facing the Revival on the kickoff show.
Even that is weird because they had this whole thing going on with the Revival and the Hardy Boys, but they also had Gallows and Anderson inserted into that feud. And now they're fucking attacking Big Show? Like, what the fuck is going on?
I know, they're just scrambling. Certain things have happened. Some of the not out of their control. But nobody could have expected the Revival getting injured again after just coming back from another long-term injury.
Right.
So that's unfortunate on their behalf, and I'm not surprised that they're scrambling a bit towards that. There's obviously a big talk about the fact that the Hardys won on a recent episode of Raw, but that's due to the fact that Jeff Hardy they weren't sure that Jeff Hardy could travel to Canada because of his previous drug convictions.
Mm-hmm. Plus, it was like, what do you do? You're setting up the thing with them in the Revival, and you can miss a week and it's okay. But then they're kind of putting him in a feud with like the Miztourage and just skipping things, and
they just don't have a plan for the Hardys, which is a bit criminal, really, because they brought them back and they did quite a lot with them, and now they can't really afford to lose steam with them too much at the moment. And with the Miz and Jason Jordan stuff, I have the big sinking feeling that this is all going to end with Jason Jordan winning the Intercontinental Championship, which he's so not ready for, and he's so not good enough to carry.
I'm not too opposed to that as like a sink or swim kind of thing, where maybe they give him the title and he doesn't seem like he's really getting over with the crowd, but maybe they turn him heel and maybe he's kind of doing the whole thing where he's like, oh, I screwed up that whole faked the paternity test because I knew that I'd be able to convince you to give me an Intercontinental title match, and now I'm the champion and now I'm the shit and fuck you, old man, like that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I think that's something that could be done over time, but I'm worried that he's going to win the title like in the next month.
It's a possibility.
And I think that's something you could build to, of like him getting opportunities and losing, and Angle keeps giving him opportunities because Jordan slowly starts like getting into his head of saying, I deserve one more chance, I deserve one more opportunity, and Angle is constantly having to go, all right, you can have another chance. But that would like slowly turn the Miz face almost. It'd be quite weird to do that. But there's still a lot of potential there. I'm not going to like write it off completely yet, even if it hasn't been that great so far.
At the very least, we can tell that whatever they're doing with SummerSlam, they don't seem to want to commit to it.
No.
And I think it's because of the Hardy Boys situation.
Yeah, I think that's a big issue. The way that the card's laid out, I just don't think they had plans for the Miz at all, which I think is just ridiculous. They didn't have anything sorted out for the Miz. I thought initially there was going to be a triple threat match between Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, and the Miz for the title.
Yeah, it seemed like they were building towards that.
Yeah. And then they just dropped that because of the Jason Jordan thing, and now they've started a feud between those two, but there hasn't been enough time to build that to really merit a place on SummerSlam. Not that stopped some of the other matches, obviously, but...
Yeah, so the running theme for this SummerSlam seems to really be, let's either do a rematch that we've done 1,000 times and not have to put any effort into whatsoever because we want to go home early, or, oh shit, we don't want to do that rematch anymore, so let's just throw a couple of names into a hat and say that these two guys are feuding now. How do we do it in the span of 2 weeks? And then they brainstorm for 10 minutes and they go, what's the one thing that we can do? Because we only want to do one step. What's the one thing we can do that makes it to where it seems like this is a good enough feud? And then they do it, and then they go, you see, everybody, this is a bitter rivalry because of this one thing that happened. And we're still kind of on the pre-show stuff, but I kind of want to get into one of the things here that's really, really pissing me off.
I think we've covered the pre-show in a lot of detail. I think we can move on to the other matches
we're like
now.
30-something minutes into that. We're putting more time into the pre-show that they put into building up the pre-show.
Yeah, let's save the people a little bit of time. We've got a lot more to bitch about.
The thing that I think encapsulates this the most, this idea of like, let's panic and just change things up, is the Baron Corbin situation with John Cena.
Oh.
And this carries over a little bit into the WWE Championship match, Jinder Mahal against Shinsuke Nakamura, but we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit later too. But it applies to almost everything too here. That's the thing. There's so many things here where there's one element to it, and that's all they care about. But the Baron Corbin thing is pissing me off because my situation here with this, I know some people disagree. I don't like Jinder Mahal as the champion. And
yes.
It's not because it's Jinder Mahal. It's because Jinder Mahal hasn't gotten better.
No, not at all.
I don't like when they give the title to somebody and they kind of go like, well, not like, I think it was Peyton put this out on the Mega Maniacs and said, not everybody goes through the Shawn Michaels thing. I like the Shawn Michaels thing. I like how Bret Hart won his title. I like how John Cena won. You know, John Cena did the United States title, then he did the world title. Some people are The Undertaker. They just win the world title, and that's it. Some people are Randy Orton. They win tag titles, and they win intercontinental titles, and then they're young enough, and they win a world title, and then they kind of go back down, and then they come back up, and back down, and back up. Chris Jericho, he had his European and intercontinental and hardcore and whatever, and then he won the 2 world titles. He goes back and forth. I think there is no reason why Jinder Mahal and Shinsuke Nakamura shouldn't be the United States title match, and the Kevin Owens and AJ Styles shouldn't be the world one.
That makes so much more sense.
And when you get Jinder Mahal as the champion, and you say, yeah, it's sink or swim, but let's give him the world title, I go, I don't know, but I'll give him a shot. Okay, let's see. Since he's won that world title, his promos have not gotten any better. His connection with the crowd hasn't gotten any better, really. He's really just like, he happens to be Indian.
Yeah,
and
that's it.
It sounds really kind of racist to say it, but it's what WWE is doing, is they're going, he's Indian, let's give him the title so he can work with the Indian market, and people will boo him because he's Indian. I don't want to boo the guy because he's Indian. I want to boo the guy because he's a heel. And his promos are very like, it's something with his voice that bugs me.
He's raspy.
He's raspy and he's got no charisma. Everything's just, you people are this and that. My people are not people. People. All the fucking time.
I hear people talking about how his promo skills have gotten better and he captivates them. I'm just like, what the fuck are you listening to?
Uh-huh.
Like, why are you not hearing the same drivel that he's repeated week in and week out over and over and over again that I'm hearing in his really awful voice? Like, he speaks for 2 sentences and then his voice cracks and he goes. It's terrible.
And what bugs me about that too is you put him, who can't, he's better than he used to be as far as promos go, but he's not that much better. And not good enough to be the world champion, that's for sure.
No, not a chance.
And you put him up against Shinsuke Nakamura, who's even worse.
Well, with promos. Yeah.
And what is their feud about? Their feud is about Shinsuke Nakamura won one match to become the number 1 contender. And that's it. He won a match against John Cena, and now he's going to fight Jinder Mahal. Their whole feud is just, he's going to fight Jinder Mahal. And they did a promo this week that proved it, because Shinsuke Nakamura comes out and he just goes, at SummerSlam.
Right, now you're getting racist.
Well, he said SummerSlam almost.
Yeah.
I'm going to beat you for the title. And it's like, oh, that's it? Okay. Now, I am kind of curious to see what happens with Jinder Mahal against Shinsuke Nakamura, but that's just as far as match quality goes, and Jinder Mahal's not a match quality type of guy.
No.
So Nakamura against Jinder Mahal means nothing to me. And
no.
I like Jinder Mahal to a certain extent. I would love it right now if he was the United States champion. And I like Shinsuke Nakamura to a certain extent. I would love it if we got to see him versus AJ Styles at WrestleMania. But I don't want him to win the world title, and I don't want Jinder Mahal to retain the title. I have no idea who Jinder Mahal can fight next if he retains the title. I have no idea who Shinsuke Nakamura can fight next if he wins the title. And a lot of people are getting a little bit annoyed, and they're saying, oh, well, Baron Corbin could have been an option. I like Baron Corbin, but I didn't want him to be the world champion either because I didn't think that he was ready for it. Yet, at the same time, and this people are going to be like, oh, you can't have it both ways. Yes, you can. Baron Corbin, I think, shouldn't have ever won Money in the Bank. And now they made him lose the Money in the Bank against John Cena, and they did it specifically because there's no heat to the John Cena-Baron Corbin feud.
Yeah.
And this is, like, they're proving themselves right now to me to be that they had no better plan for the Money in the Bank. And I talked about this with the fantasy booking. If Raw didn't have a plan for Money in the Bank, and at best, this was the plan that they had for SmackDown, was how about Baron Corbin wins and then he loses his cash in just to be a mercy thing for John Cena later on, then that combined with the women's Money in the Bank, how that fiasco went down, why isn't Money in the Bank just on the card for SummerSlam to get all these people on the fucking card, you know?
Mm. This is like one of the biggest shitstorms I've ever seen in professional wrestling. It's so bizarre. You wasted Money in the Bank. Uh-huh. I know certain people say, oh, you shouldn't have Money in the Bank every year or it deserves a break and cash-ins ruin the suspense of actual matches. But it's something that I think, okay, we won't have the Royal Rumble certain years because I don't want to see the Royal Rumble winner winning it sometimes. I think Money in the Bank is a good enough concept that it should be done yearly and it should have some sort of meaning to it. Doesn't mean that everyone who cashes in should win the title, but this is the biggest waste of the briefcase I've ever seen. Even Damien Sandow's one. At least he got a match with John Cena that got people talking and interested in him for a little while. This was a total waste because it's gone into a match that nobody really cares about. Cena versus Baron Corbin isn't a match that people are going to be particularly interested in.
No.
Cena is going on to Raw after this match anyway, as if all reports are to be believed. So he's going to be a one and done anyway. So it's not like he can continue this feud with Baron Corbin.
Which pretty much means either Cena beats Corbin, which means it's pointless, or Corbin beats Cena, and then they can't capitalize on it because he's not Mr. Money in the Bank anymore.
Yeah. And they had him get rolled up in 10 seconds by Jinder Mahal after cashing in. Jinder Mahal, who just had a lengthy match with John Cena. And of course, Corbin was slightly distracted by Cena. But this makes Corbin look absolutely terrible. He's gone from Mr. Money in the Bank, which is usually the idea of being a world champion, to someone whose credibility is so low that he needs to be not so much repackaged, but basically like saved to have any opportunity of getting a title shot ever again. Like, losing in that fashion is like, that is a bury job. That there's no word about it. He got buried in that situation.
And you know what makes me think that they're gonna, if they do this is the only way that they can sort of try to rectify things, is that they have Baron Corbin beat John Cena. John Cena just acts like nothing happened. He goes to Monday Night Raw, and there's no repercussions for Baron Corbin. And then Baron Corbin moves on to another feud with somebody else, which at this point I think would be AJ Styles. And then if you have Baron Corbin beat AJ Styles for the United States Championship, then in WWE's mind, they'll go, it all worked out in the end. Baron Corbin is a champion. He beat John Cena. He got his, whatever, and that's fine. And to me, it's like, if that was your plan, why didn't you just put the fucking Intercontinental title on him when he was fighting Dean Ambrose?
Or why didn't you give the Money in the Bank briefcase to somebody else and just have Corbin face AJ Styles for the United States Championship on this show?
Exactly.
Give it to Kevin Owens instead.
Yeah, give the Money in the Bank to Kevin Owens. And have Baron Corbin fight AJ Styles for the United States title. Because they were feuding at the time. AJ Styles had beaten Kevin Owens.
Yeah. And then you could have Kevin Owens face John Cena, which would have been, of course we've seen it before, but it would have been a far better match. And at least it would have been something like slightly more interesting to do.
And they would have been able to make it work. They didn't already do a whole John Cena fight somebody who we've seen before, because they just did that with Rusev. This whole thing is just a fucking mess. And at this point, it's like, well, what happens at SummerSlam? Baron Corbin beats Cena, doesn't matter. Cena beats Corbin, doesn't matter. Jinder Mahal beats Nakamura, all that's going to do is upset Nakamura fans. Nakamura beats Jinder Mahal, well, then we have a champion that can't cut a promo, and we're on the same page as somebody who's not necessarily quite at that main event level yet. And who the fuck does he fight? And what do you wasted all this time with Jinder Mahal beating Randy Orton to set up Shinsuke Nakamura as champion? They're doing this jingoistic, everybody hates Jinder Mahal because he's Indian thing, and it's playing up this idea of the American pride kind of being like, that's the guy that you're supposed to want to cheer for. Shinsuke Nakamura's Japanese. He shouldn't be all fighting for American pride. And I don't think that it needs to be an American guy that beats Jinder Mahal for the title, but if they're going to go with that gimmick, then you kind of should have had John Cena just be that guy, and he just beat Jinder Mahal anyway. It's like, this whole thing's a fucking mess. I don't get it.
What we're saying is SmackDown is our favourite show.
Oh, it's like, a couple months ago, I was sitting there saying, like, well, at least SmackDown knows what they're doing. And, 2017 has not been good to SmackDown.
No, it's since WrestleMania, it's
even before
been going downhill fast. Oh yeah, it wasn't great with like the WWE Championship changing hands every couple of weeks or whatever, but at least it had still had some elements of 2016 SmackDown where it still had some decent storytelling. Then things just went into WrestleMania and their matches on there weren't great, and a lot of them were thrown together at the last minute. And now it's just followed that trend constantly. So I don't know what's happened.
It's really making me think that there's a problem with the writers on SmackDown, because the way that they started this year off, where they were like, let's give the Royal Rumble win to Randy Orton, and then we'll put the title on Cena so he can lose it 2 weeks later to a guy that we're specifically just going to give the title to so he can lose it to Randy Orton, just so he can lose it to Jinder Mahal, just so, like, everything is like, it's like they're writing an outline, and each outline segment says, like, point B, and then underneath it says, because we want to get to point C, and then point C says, because we did point B. And it's not in a line of, like, Kevin Owens sets up his thing with Sami Zayn, Sami Zayn finally wins the title, Kevin Owens beats Sami Zayn, and then we build towards Sami Zayn getting revenge on Kevin Owens. It's more like what happened with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, where it was like, this is our last match ever, and 2 weeks later we're going to have another match.
Yeah.
Where they're not planning this out, they don't know what they're doing, they're switching things up at the last minute, and then they're forcing themselves to be like Baron Corbin comes out, he's been feuding with Shinsuke Nakamura, he's Mr. Money in the Bank, and he's been losing his matches. In the philosophy of typical WWE, where it's, yeah, he's Mr. Money in the Bank, so he can lose because he's eventually going to win, and then nobody will care that he lost. Well, he eventually lost, so now it just seems like Baron Corbin can't win. But he's fighting Shinsuke Nakamura, and then you just have him, instead of attacking Shinsuke Nakamura, he attacks John Cena because you want to have him fight John Cena. No reason for him to do it. And now we're set up with this WWE Championship match against these two people that don't seem to click well versus this other match, Corbin-Cena, and it seems like it should have just been Cena versus Jinder Mahal and Shinsuke Nakamura versus Baron Corbin.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
I know. It's just so weird. The WWE Championship match on SummerSlam should mean something. It should have had a bit of like thought and build go into it. Like Nakamura and Mahal have only interacted once since Nakamura became number one contender. That interaction wasn't interesting in the slightest. Mahal lost to both John Cena and Randy Orton the weeks leading up to SummerSlam, so he looks pathetic. And if he wins at SummerSlam, then there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be angry about it because Nakamura is a big star. And I don't think it will go as far as like to riots in the stand or something like that, but I could see a lot of people just turning on the entire show. Mm-hmm. Well, I could see them turning on the entire show based on that and just not being into any of the other matches until the main event happens.
And you know what'll really just put extra salt on the wound? If they have like a DQ.
That would be the saltiest there anything. Just have the same process they did for Randy Orton, which essentially the Singh brothers get involved. Nakamura kicks both their heads off, and then Mahal hits his terrible finisher and wins the match.
Well,
just rinse and repeat.
It's going to be one of three options: either that, where they have Shinsuke Nakamura lose his match, and people are pissed because Shinsuke Nakamura lost, which he's going to lose at some point.
Yeah,
he's got to lose. Or they do Nakamura wins by DQ, and then they can have him do the whole thing where it's like, technically he won the match, so we're going to have him fight him again at Hell in a Cell, because Hell in a Cell is the next pay-per-view.
Oh God, yeah, and this feud really screams Hell in a Cell to me.
Right. That's.
I mean, nowadays it does. Nowadays it does to me because obviously Hell in a Cell doesn't mean anything. It's just a gimmick.
It's insane. And then the other option is that Nakamura wins by countout or loses by countout or something like that, and it's like. But then they could also just have Nakamura just win the title and have everybody go like, oh, isn't this great that Nakamura is the champion? And then it's like, yeah, you marked out a couple of the indie people that were really into wrestling and the, the IWC kind of crowd. But then what do you go from there? And does that mean that they're doing that because they want AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura at WrestleMania next year to be for the World Championship and not Styles going in as the champion? Because if that's the case, then Styles needs to lose his United States title, which means we've been switching the Styles-Owens thing over and over and over again, and then we're back to Kevin Owens. It's like, I don't think that they're planning this out.
No.
I don't think that they're thinking. Or if they are, they're idiots or something. Like, or I'm missing something. Maybe they have some grand plan, and it's like, by the time Survivor Series happens, we're going to look back and go, oh, dude, this is amazing. I can't wait for WrestleMania, but I doubt it.
This was all just to get Ty Dillinger the title.
You know what? I
don't know how.
Him
don't
be
know how, but
than some people.
You don't know how, but this is how it's going to end up. This is my prediction. Fuck the SummerSlam predictions. My prediction is Ty Dillinger's the world champion by Survivor Series.
And they'll give him 9 extra belts.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of how many matches did we go through there? We went through quite a few.
That is essentially the world title match and Corbin Cena. So who are you going with for the winners for those two?
Cena and Nakamura.
I'm gonna go. Well, I've been changing my mind a little bit back and forth about this. I'm gonna go Corbin Mahal.
You're just being difficult, aren't you, Tony? Just want to be contentious.
At this point, I think it's as legitimate of a prediction if I would say that Aiden English would win both matches. Like, I don't think that they have a clue there. Maybe Goldust is going to win them.
Tony, I don't agree with your opinion. I think we should settle this at SummerSlam.
Well, there's more of a feud for that then.
Exactly. We fit right in.
And I let's keep the gravy train going here. These two things are pissing me off too. Randy Orton versus Rusev.
Yeah, God. What? Why are they feuding again?
They're feuding because Rusev. All right, well, here's the trajectory that they've gone down. Rusev gets switched over to SmackDown, and he's injured at the time. Which, okay, sure. They set him up and they go, you know what? Let's have him complain that he wants a world title match at Money in the Bank. At that point, we'll have Randy Orton versus Rusev for the title. Never really seen it before. Okay. Then they decide to go with Jinder Mahal instead. Then they decide to put the title on Jinder Mahal. Then they decide to keep the title on Jinder Mahal. Eventually, because it's like, yo, hey, we're building up to that Nakamura match, you know? And Rusev decides, I got nothing better to do. Let me just attack John Cena and we can do a flag match. And then after they do that, they decide that they want to switch everything up with John Cena and stuff. So Rusev comes out, cuts a promo, and he says, I want to fight somebody at SummerSlam. And Orton goes, I got nothing better to do. And then they go, okay. The end.
I'm sure there was a couple of RKOs that you missed there, but other than that, I think you're pretty spot on.
He hit an RKO this week. Rusev's been, in the meanwhile, beating up Chad Gable, a guy who they had set up as possibly having a decent mid-card career, and then he gets squashed by Rusev. So that's nice to see that they are just trying to bury Chad Gable.
Yeah, it's like those people that predicted that Sami Zayn will be world champion soon.
Yeah. Sami Zayn, who, by the way, is not on the card. Neither is Mike Kanellis.
Or Ty Dillinger.
Or Dillinger. Or Luke Harper. Or Eric Rowan. Or Aiden English. Or
the Fashion Police.
Yeah. Or the Ascension. Or the Hardy Boys. Or Jason Jordan. Or The Miz and the Intercontinental Championship. Or Luke Gallows. Or Carl Anderson.
I mean, do you really want this show to be 6 hours long? It's going to be bad enough already.
Orton versus Rusev to me is one of those things that's like, you don't have all these guys on the card, but you're doing this match. Couldn't Orton have just used this as his time to take a little bit of time off?
This screams SmackDown main event to me.
Even
like
now,
a main event.
Know.
Oh yeah, I know, but it's just like a match that you'd throw on SmackDown before a title match. The fact that it hasn't been seen before is not due to the fact that was pre-planned for years on end to keep these two apart so they could have a big match at SummerSlam 2017. It's just because it never lined up, and now they're just going to do it because Orton doesn't have anything to do and he needs to get a win back after losing 3 times to Mahal. And Rusev just eats losses and carries on going because that's the way they see him. They see him as a guy that can just lose and lose against the big stars, and it doesn't do anything to hurt him when it actually does.
I look at this and I think to myself, how come nobody can pitch this kind of an idea? Now, maybe this isn't the course that they want to go down, but as we've been seeing, maybe they don't have any plan anyway. But just to throw it out there, Rusev and Chad Gable have been having their kind of spats. So you do a match where Chad Gable beats Rusev. You do a match where Rusev beats Chad Gable. Randy Orton takes a little bit of time off. He has the summer with his kids. His kids are going back to school. It's September, that kind of a thing. And Orton needs a little bit of time to rehab injuries. Always. He always does. He gets injured if he's wrestling too long. So you do the Randy Orton thing with Jinder Mahal and okay, whatever. It takes a little bit of time off. He'll come back around Survivor Series or Hell in a Cell or something. And you do Rusev versus Chad Gable at SummerSlam, and the winner becomes the new #1 contender to the United States Championship. AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens, maybe it stays the same, and if you have Kevin Owens win, Chad Gable gets the title shot. If you have AJ Styles as the champion, Rusev gets the title shot. And then you move on to Chad Gable versus Kevin Owens, AJ Styles versus Rusev, no matter who the champion is.
But Tony, that involves a match with stakes. They can't handle the stakes.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
All those stakes are tough. Need a bit more cooking.
Oh man, I could go for a steak right now.
Yeah.
So good. But like that's not hard. And
No.
The people that would argue and say, yeah, Chad Gable or Randy Orton, who's going to be the bigger draw? Randy Orton for sure. But
yeah,
you mean to tell me that there's anybody out there that's going and they're not going to watch the SummerSlam card? But if Randy Orton versus Rusev's on there, that's going to make them change their mind.
It would be more of a draw if they actually build up storylines that people get invested in over the course of a few weeks, and build up characters that people get invested in over the course of that time as well, and then they fight each other, and then people actually are interested because they've grown to appreciate these characters, rather than just say, oh, this guy's been here 10 years, so people are going to care about him, so I'll put him in a match with somebody who's been on the roster just out at random. Just throw a dartboard and pick the one guy that comes out there. But that's what they do, because they see individuals as big names, and all the other people are expendable to an extent, because eventually those older people are going to retire, and then they'll be the new big stars. But obviously they won't be big stars because they've been beaten for years on end.
And a guy like Rusev right now, he's somebody who's like deep enough entrenched in the roster that he'll stick around for a while, but I can't buy him being world champion.
No.
I mean, I couldn't buy Jinder Mahal either, but, you know, they could just throw the title on Rusev and just kind of be like, just deal with it.
When they expand to Bulgaria, then Rusev's champion.
Yeah, then he'll end up winning it. That'll be the thing.
Mm.
This feud is so dumb, though. Like, I don't care who wins. Yeah. It doesn't matter who wins. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if they're not feuding for Hell in a Cell. Like if they just move on to 2 new feuds.
Yeah, I'd probably go along with that. I think Orton's going to win. Yeah, I kind of think that I think with WWE's logic at the moment, because with Money in the Bank in particular, that was kind of a heel-heavy like card of people winning, and Battleground was also along that way. I think they're trying to go along the lines of thinking, SummerSlam's the time where we could have a lot of babyfaces winning and people be happy. But that's not, people be happy because like they actually got matches they wanted to see more than a particular person won or lost. Trust me, a lot more people in that arena would probably want Rusev to win than Orton, but Orton's going to win.
Probably.
That's what I see anyway.
I was originally going to go from that to the Balor Wyatt thing, but I feel like I've been complaining too much, and I want to talk about something positive. So I'll go back to that a little bit afterward. But I want to go to something that's optimistic a little bit. The Raw Tag Team Championship match.
Yes, this is the match.
Yeah, Cesaro and Sheamus are going to be defending against Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, who just need to fuck already. Like they
see how badly they missed their fist bump. It's like their hands were just crawling over each other. It's like they never touched hands before.
It's like missing a high five, or like going for a handshake and one person's got like the limp hand kind of thing. It's just like you know that it's awkward, and you know both of them were sitting there going, God damn it. But it's weird that they've been teasing that whole thing, and Jordan, who writes for Smark, you guys should be familiar with Jordan. She brought it up. She's like, this is like a rom-com. And it is. It's like they're doing the whole thing where it's like, I don't know if I can quit you. And then it's like, yeah, well, I'm mad at you because it's the third act and I need to be mad at you. And then the other one's like, oh, well, you're the one who's the problem. And then it's like, well, I apologize to you. And well, now I'm mad at you instead. And it's like, it was so laughable, but I had to fucking find it funny enough that I liked it, you know?
It's weird that, obviously, you've just described the plot of a bad rom-com, and this is the best built feud into the entire SummerSlam, in my opinion.
Yeah, it pretty much is, for the most part. It's
and it just
so sad.
And they wouldn't even, like, register 30% on Rotten Tomatoes.
No, this is like, let's throw a couple of darts at a board and be like, all right, this is Reese Witherspoon is dating Bradley Cooper, and it's called like Lifetime at the Vineyard, like that kind of shit. Like, but I'm curious about one thing. The outcome of this match, I think, can go twofold. Either we get new tag team champions, which kind of interesting, or I think Ambrose might turn heel.
Those are the two options, I think. I think they both have a very realistic chance of happening. I'm kind of going more along the lines at the moment of thinking that Ambrose and Rollins will win it back, just due to the reaction that they got when they eventually did reunite. I think WWE would be pretty foolish to not capitalise on it, but they've obviously done that before. So I wouldn't put it past them just to cut it off dead and have Ambrose turn.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's one of these weird situations where, like, if Ambrose was to turn on Rollins, it would be more of a shock, and people might be, oh god, I wasn't actually expecting that, even though it's something that a lot of people could see coming. It's just like, I didn't actually think they'd go through with it, and that might be seen as interesting, but it's actually a mistake. They've actually got something with a lot of legs that could run for a while with Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. became champions here and were able to at least hold on to them for a little while and then eventually have Ambrose turn on Rollins to mark the end of the betrayal, but they could so easily just jump the gun and waste a few months worth of storylines.
Yeah, I think that we could get something where it's like Ambrose and Rollins are champions and then eventually drop it to maybe like the Revival or something.
Yeah.
If the Revival are actually able to
compete. Yeah.
And then we get like Ambrose turns around like Royal Rumble time or something.
Yeah, I'd say that'd be a good way of like dragging out the story and actually keep it interesting still, rather than just waste it all in 2 nights essentially.
Yeah, and hopefully if they do go the route of them winning the tag titles and then one of them turning on the other one, it's Ambrose that turns heel, and it's also not to set up Ambrose versus Rollins at WrestleMania. Because that's not a WrestleMania match to me anymore.
Is it not?
We've seen it enough.
Yeah, it's happened quite a lot, but I think with the roles reversed, it makes it slightly more WrestleMania worthy. I just don't know what else you do with them, but again, that's quite a long way down the line, and there's a lot of options that could turn up. But I wouldn't be mad to see Ambrose versus Rollins at WrestleMania.
I'd rather have Ambrose versus Samoa Joe. But then again, Ambrose, I'd rather see the babyface in that feud. So, it's kind of tough. And then if they do the whole superstar shakeup, then who knows?
Yeah.
But at the very least, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing new tag champs here. And
no.
Cesaro and Sheamus, they've done a little bit better than what I originally thought that they would do. But I think it's time that we kind of take the belts off of them.
Yeah, I think it's time to move on with them a little bit. And I don't mean in the lines of like they should break up immediately and stuff along those lines, because I think they still have a little bit of staying power. They need to go through like a come down phase almost before they can move back into singles competition.
Yeah.
And I've liked Cesaro as a heel. I was originally like against it because I think, he's just too popular, people. But he's worked as a heel. He's done a really good job. And Sheamus is more interesting now than he's ever has been. Well, definitely in a good few years anyway. So I'd like to see them stick around either in the tag team scene or just stay as friends, but then start competing in singles matches and start chasing singles championships.
I'd actually be okay with Cesaro turning babyface again. Although I don't think it's the right move, but then we could get like Cesaro versus Samoa Joe. So Cesaro versus well, they could still do Cesaro versus Roman Reigns, heel or face.
Well, I can imagine if they are doing the superstar shake-up afterwards, that they would
move.
Yeah, one of them moves.
Yeah,
and then they both could stay heels. It would just be more like a reluctant parting more than one of them has to turn on the other and break up another tag team.
Which at that point, I would totally love to see like Cesaro move to SmackDown. We could get like Cesaro versus AJ Styles. That'd be cool.
Yeah. There's a huge new wealth of possibilities. But I'm going to go Ambrose and Rollins to win this one. I just think it makes sense for them to win the title now.
I'm very hesitant not to go with that heel turn because I could see them just doing that bait and switch, but I am going to go with new tag champs too. I think that's going to be the case. Maybe specifically because they want to do the whole like eventually they'll turn thing or not, but I think that you're kind of right when you say like they got a good reaction, they build up this whole thing with this pop. They're going to get another pop if they win the tag titles. And maybe there's not a whole lot of stuff going for them in the future for like the main event for Raw. So if they keep them in the tag title situation, then they're always on pay-per-views.
Yeah, exactly.
Actually, like, you know what? Let's kind of go with another little positive thing here, at least in my mind. The Raw Women's Tag Team Championship that doesn't exist. The Raw Women's Championship, Bliss versus Banks. I am very happy that this isn't Alexa Bliss versus Bayley.
Yeah.
That didn't make any sense to me.
No, it just doesn't work. Like, you've already established in their previous outings that Alexa Bliss is head and shoulders over Bayley. Not literally, obviously, because she's 5 feet of fury. But it's a
weird situation, though, because clearly they wanted to do that.
Yeah, I know. It's really odd. I don't know why they decided to do that, because Bayley lost all momentum in that feud.
Mm-hmm.
and putting it and just resuming it just seemed like it must have. I think it must have been leading to a Sasha Banks heel turn on Bayley. Yeah. That must have been what they had in mind, but I don't know.
They kind of did this whole weird thing with them. It's like, was it Battleground? No, Battleground was SmackDown. So Great Balls of Fire. Sasha Banks won by countout.
Yeah,
and they were like, couldn't brush that aside and not really give her a rematch. Which
said that she had to earn a rematch by facing Bayley, which seems like what a heel general manager would do more than what Kurt Angle would do.
Yeah, that was kind of strange. And they also set up this whole thing with Nia Jax that didn't pay off.
Yeah, that's. I think again the Bayley injury has thrown their plans out of whack a little bit. The Nia Jax stuff is really weird to me because she's in a situation where they want to push her really strong and make her like the big dominant powerhouse of Raw, but she keeps losing at the biggest opportunities that she gets, and that's just somebody who's just not cut out for the main event scene. It's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have her be the biggest, most dominant force on Raw. Yeah, I know Nia Jax eating cake. That's I realise what I said now, but yeah, she you can't have her in a situation where you want her as the most dominant force on Raw, but not have her be able to fight for the championship because you want to have other people fight for the title. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, at that point, why isn't she just beating Naomi?
Exactly. Why isn't she on SmackDown beating Naomi, or why isn't she just the Raw Women's Champion?
Right.
You can't be half pregnant. I'm making too many fat references here, aren't
I? I thought that this was going to turn out to be a triple threat at one point with Alexa Bliss defending against Nia Jax and Sasha Banks.
Could have worked.
Now I'm still kind of thinking that maybe something happens with that, and I wouldn't be too shocked if Sasha Banks won the title.
No, I wouldn't be surprised either. I think that actually makes more sense here. She wouldn't really have her lose, or she technically didn't lose the Great Balls of Fire, but she didn't win the title, and doing that 2 pay-per-views in a row is usually a sign that you're going to move on to someone else. So I would say, I think Sasha Banks should win the title here, because I have a long-term goal. Going back to our NXT predictions, the idea of the iconic duo coming up, I can see an idea of Sasha Banks winning the title here, then defending it again against Alexa Bliss at the next pay-per-view, and then she moves on to a feud with Emma, with the Peyton Royce and Billie Kay at her side.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's the course that I think would be a good way of like freshening up the women's division scene on Raw, and Alexa Bliss can start moving on to. I'm trying to think. Maybe something to do with Mickie James. They didn't really have too much of an actual feud, so I'm sure she'll find other things to do. She's definitely charismatic and has enough of a presence to stay relevant in the women's division without the title.
And they got to figure out something to do with Nia Jax too.
Yeah, well,
which that could be a sign that maybe Sasha Banks doesn't win the title. Maybe they do have like Nia Jax interferes, Sasha Banks loses, Nia Jax then wins some kind of like a shot against Alexa Bliss or something. But I wouldn't be shocked if either Bliss or Banks won this match.
No, well, one of them has to.
I think it just totally depends on what they want to do next.
Yeah. If I'm got to put a gun to my head, I'd say Sasha Banks.
Right now, that's where I'm leaning to. Although I probably have Bliss in my predictions. I don't know.
It's quite weird because like we're on the whole not really looking forward to SummerSlam, or don't think that it's been built up very particularly well. But a lot of these matches are very unpredictable.
Yeah, some of them are very just, and I don't know if that's because it's like, it's just like it's hard to see what their plan is, or if it's just I don't think that they know what they want to do either.
Yeah,
you know, that kind of thing. I will say though, as far as the SmackDown Women's Championship match goes, Naomi's not dropping that belt.
I disagree.
Are you thinking Natalya or are you thinking Carmella?
Natalya.
See, I don't think she just beats Natalya and that's the end of it. And no Carmella cash in and nothing. I think they are just going to have a waste of a segment.
I don't think Carmella's going to cash in because I don't think they do both cash-ins in the space of a week. That would seem like overkill. But I think Natalya's going to win because I haven't really enjoyed Naomi as champion. That's not the reason, obviously. But she hasn't really done too much, and she's held the title since WrestleMania, so she's had a decent run with it in terms of length, not so much in terms of quality. Just due to the fact that she hasn't had the opportunity to feud enough with people. And they've been doing too many multi-women tag matches and multi-women matches and matches that don't involve her on pay-per-views. I think the idea of Natalya winning and trying to restore some, as she sees, tradition to the title, because she thinks it's been made a mockery of by having fluorescent lights placed all over it and stuff like that. I think that could be a good way forward. And also I see along the lines of, again, just trying to go with some long-term booking, even though that's not really how WWE operates. If Natalya wins a title, I could see her eventually dropping it to Becky Lynch, and then Becky Lynch losing it immediately to Carmella in a cash-in. Just because I think Becky Lynch is the quintessential babyface on SmackDown, so having her be the one that loses the title to Carmella makes more sense to me than having Naomi drop it to Carmella.
I'm imagining Natalya just loses. If they didn't do the Baron Corbin thing, I thought that maybe there would have been potential for Naomi to get cashed in on, but not this week. And I think that they're setting something up with Lana and Tamina, where Tamina will get a title shot against Naomi. So
that is true. I keep forgetting about that because I just try and pretend that stuff isn't happening.
I could see maybe Naomi and Natalya having a Hell in a Cell match, even though they can't justify it at this point.
What?
And then I think Carmella maybe cashes in at that point.
Oh my god, it's gonna happen, isn't it? Oh, you can't have a Hell in a Cell match between Tamina and Naomi. It's gonna. That's like the sign, like, okay, the Hell in a Cell's dead. We can't do anything. We can't revive it from this situation. Just cart it away, take it away for 10 years, and maybe we'll bring it back.
Yeah. Either that or Naomi and Natalya Hell in a Cell, or.
Well, why not just have? I mean, if you're gonna have a women's Hell in a Cell match, and it's not the case that they're women and so they shouldn't be in the Hell in a Cell, but you need to have an actual feud for Hell in a Cell.
What if they do Hell in a Cell, like with the glow? Like they put all the shit all over it, and it glows the entire fucking match.
Oh god, Mick Foley will be turning in his non-existent grave.
Turning in his bed.
Yeah. But yeah, because like the other women's Hell in a Cell match, that with Sasha Banks and Charlotte, that was like a heated rivalry that deserved Hell in a Cell, or at least it merited Hell in a Cell as much as any other match on that card. I just can't see it happening for SmackDown, but if that's the next one up, then they're going to have to do something for that, but I just don't see what. I don't see either of these two fitting into a Hell in a Cell match.
And I can't see Naomi versus Carmella being a Hell in a Cell either.
Oh, definitely not, no. Yeah, I'm still going to stick with Natalya. I just think that Naomi's run has run its course. And she'll still be in the picture and about, but I think Natalya is a good buffer between Naomi and eventually either Becky Lynch or Charlotte holding the title.
So we're talking a little bit about Hell in a Cell here. Let's talk about a different type of cage. Good old shark cage.
This fucking feud. I'm just going to go and say, Big Cass sucks. He's not good in any. They clearly had high expectations of him, and clearly
he's not living up to them yet.
No, he's 7 feet tall, and you can't teach that. And clearly, you can't teach him any sort of promo skills or wrestling ability or charisma because he hasn't got 7 feet of that either.
I liked Big Cass for a while, and I thought that he had a lot of upside to him.
I thought I liked him as well, and I actually liked Enzo Amore. Clearly, that was what the thing was. I liked Enzo Amore's charisma, and then he was a good hot tag. That's all. That's all Big Cass is a good hot tag.
Yeah, he's a good news story every week.
Yeah, he's the Paige and Alberto Del Rio of the tag team division.
Yeah. This is a weird situation where, like, I get what they're going for with Big Cass versus Big Show, and it's kind of like, let's try to put over one of the younger guys and whatever, but first off, I don't understand what Gallows and Anderson are doing here at all.
Well, they had some matches with Big Show and Enzo Amore, so that's why.
And why is Enzo in a shark cage? Why do they call it a shark cage? Because it was called a crash cage with that toy.
Because sharks are scary and dangerous, so it makes the match more dangerous.
At least dress up Enzo Amore as Shark Boy to put him in there. Do something, you know? He's got the fucking hair for it. Just turn it into a fin.
Yeah, that works. Or have Big Show and have Big Cass have like fins on the back of them, so they're basically circling Enzo Amore, the sharks.
They could do like how Bash at the Beach used to have that pool set. This match can be in a pool. And it could be like Enzo Amore's in a shark cage and whatever, and they actually have sharks.
and then someone wins with a big splash.
There you go. Big Show hits a big splash on Big Cass. And then the Big Red Machine and Big Hungry. And the other ones come out and it becomes that Big Mind Buffet that I kept talking about. This thing is just, it's stupid. And,
yeah, it's really bad.
They have themselves an out when it comes to Big Show losing by having him have the injured hand, which I'm okay with. It's not the end of the world, whatever. But nobody's going to care about Big Cass afterward. Thank God they switched his theme song around. Because that was just awful. But yeah, I'm done with this whole Big Show and Big Cass and Enzo thing.
Well, here's my big prediction for this match. For the big match. Big Cass is going to win when Enzo Amore drops some sort of object for Cass to use on Big Show. And Enzo Amore is going to turn heel.
I'm going with just Big Cass just wins with a big boot. I think the match is just going to suck.
Oh, yeah, it is going to suck. Either way, I think Big Cass is going to win, but I just think they feel like they went with an experiment for Big Cass standing out on his own, and I think they believe it hasn't worked. So they're just going to try and retcon it by turning Big Cass and Enzo heel and putting them back in the tag team division.
Stranger things have happened. Which reminds me, I never saw Stranger Things. I need to watch that show. Yeah, this is just a feud that I'm like, I'd almost rather just see the Good Brothers against Big Show. Yeah. And not have the two driving forces of Enzo and Cass in this.
Well, speaking of matches we don't care about, what's up next, Tony?
Bray Wyatt versus Finn Balor.
Oh, God. I'm going to go on a rant here. I need to start this with a rant. See, they gave this match away on Raw, which is the first mistake. Because even though, obviously, it's the first match ever and they wanted to say, oh, SummerSlam's come early, so we'll give you this match. This isn't a match that merits, like, oh, it's such a huge deal that these two haven't faced each other. And any sort of pretense that they had some sort of selling ability with this match having never taken place before is completely out of the window now. Because they had a match on Raw. The match on Raw wasn't particularly special. Bray Wyatt won and then covered Finn Balor in pain. Now, the pretense of covering them with pain is the fact that Finn Balor is going to be wearing his demon get-up for SummerSlam. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's SummerSlam, so of course he's going to wear this demon get-up. It's one of the big shows. He should wear it. It's fucking bullshit. What the fuck is it mean? The demon doesn't mean anything. It's an idea of like, oh, he gets put in all the pain and it unleashes something inside of him that he only brings out on special moments because he has to tap into a part of his psyche. It's fucking bullshit. It just puts on paint when there's a big show. That's all it is. The demon means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't change his ring style. It doesn't change his character. He doesn't gives him a kind of a different finisher or anything like that.
Gives him a fancy entrance and that's it. And it makes him look slightly different.
The worst part is he doesn't even get that fancier of an entrance.
No.
He does the same entrance, except they replace a leather jacket with whatever the fuck Rastafarian tendril things are on his head.
And
that's it. As soon as the entrance is done, it's the exact same match that we just got on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah. It's the difference between a gimmick and a marketing stunt.
Right.
This idea that, he's got to turn up in the big demon get-up because it's SummerSlam, it's a big show. So, that people will buy SummerSlam because they want to see him look in his, like, fancy paint and see what sort of superhero or character he's portraying, which will probably be Venom, because that's all he seems to do at this point in time. But,
if you want to tell me that there's a difference between characters, show me American Badass versus The Undertaker.
Exactly.
That's a difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference. Not a particularly good difference, but it's big. It's definitely a notable difference. He needs to have some sort of ring style. At least the feud should merit it. This feud doesn't merit anything. I don't even know what they're feuding about.
I think that they're feuding about how Bray Wyatt talks a bunch of nonsense and Finn Balor doesn't like red paint.
Yeah. There's a lot of badly built feuds on this card, but I'd argue this is the worst one, which is pretty unforgivable because if you give them more time than most of them. And yet I just don't know why, because I can't listen to Bray Wyatt's promos anymore because he doesn't say anything meaningful. It's gone to the point where I just fast forward them because I don't care anymore, because whatever he says, it's too garbled and nonsensical for most people to understand. And even if he does say, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to expose you, or do that, he doesn't back it up because he never wins any feuds.
He cuts Ultimate Warrior promos without the passion.
Yeah, I think that's the best description I've ever heard.
It's nonsense, and
yeah,
it used to be kind of fun.
It was
got
good at the start.
Pretty fast too, and it's like we were talking about it when it came to like him versus Daniel Bryan. It was like he's kind of saying a bunch of nothing, isn't he? And it hasn't changed at all. I mean, it's just a bunch of rhetoric and, the Eater of the Worlds is going to be taking you to a dark side you've never felt before. And there's a cult that's passionate about death, and the dark side's going to... And it's like, none of this matters. You're fighting a guy in the ring, and the guy is going to be fighting you the same way he did, whether or not he's got a bunch of face paint or not. At this point, fucking make Goldust the guy that's working with this, and make him paint Finn Balor gold and combine those stories. Then I'm at least more interested in being like, oh, look at that, he's a gold demon now.
Yeah, that would make more sense. Like, Goldust would have like some gold paint they'd throw over him, and then he might want to don his own type of paint. It makes more sense. This is so... I can't even say it's lazy. I mean, it is lazy, but, it's more of a sense of, like, they just didn't have anything for these two to do. So they put them together, but it goes beyond being lazy. It's to the point of, like, well, this match will just sell itself. Like, why do I care? It's Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt. I'm not as into Finn Balor as so many people seem to be. He's he's good in the ring, but, like, he's not very charismatic.
No, not at all. And
he's
good in the ring in the sense where it's like, I can depend on Finn Balor to put on a decent enough performance, but I'm also never going to imagine Finn Balor is going to put on the best match of the night.
No. And, like, wearing a leather jacket and doing performance arts in your entrance doesn't make me think that you're cool. Or, like, makes me think that you're worth any more than any other person on the roster. I'd almost prefer to see, like, Elias versus R-Truth on this show than this match. At least they had some sort of interaction. And it's just, the match has already happened, I've already seen it, and I wasn't too impressed. And unless they do some sort of weird gimmicky shit, 'cause they always do that with Bray Wyatt, then maybe it'll be slightly more of a interesting and kind of freak show mentality. But besides that, I don't want to see it. And I'm also at the point where I don't want to see Bray Wyatt anymore, which sounds awful because at the start of the year I was actually getting more into him with his feud with the storyline with Orton and the Wyatt family disintegrating and him being champion. But at this point, I think he's just worthless.
This is the type of thing where they know that these two needed the feud. But once you get done the entrances, you might as well just take your bathroom break a little bit.
This would be...
They're two guys that, like, they do have value. Like...
Yeah.
If Finn Balor was the Intercontinental Champion, I'd be cool with it. if Bray Wyatt was the Intercontinental Champion, I'd rather probably want some other people, but it's got some value to that kind of idea. But the two of them feuding over almost nothing, and it's a face value type of thing. It's very much just, once you get past the Demon Balor versus Bray Wyatt on paper, it's really not going to amount to much.
We're both going Balor, right? 50-50 booking and all that?
Yeah, it's going to be Balor.
Yeah.
And if it's not Balor, it's because they want to keep the feud going.
They can't have the Demon. The idea of like the Demon losing on a feud against Bray Wyatt is just laughable. But again, it's not out of the realms of possibility. But I'd imagine that I'm going to go with Balor winning still.
Definitely going to go with Balor. We have 2 more matches left. This is a long ass card.
Yeah.
We have the United States Championship match. We talked about it a little bit before, but it's AJ Styles against Kevin Owens with Shane McMahon as the special guest referee, which that adds an interesting little dynamic to it. And I'm actually kind of into the match. Like, Owens and Styles are 2 of my favorites on the roster, and I've been past the point where I don't want to see them feud anymore, but it could be a fun match. And this whole thing with Shane McMahon kind of having a little bit of beef with both of them, all right, I'll bite.
It's been better than I thought it would be. I've kind of got to the point where I was over this feud, but adding Shane McMahon in, I know some people get annoyed when Shane McMahon's involved in anything in a wrestling capacity outside of his role as commissioner because, it's just McMahon's putting himself in like the big situations. I think it works in this situation. Has history with AJ Styles. Kevin Owens has been getting in his face in a number of situations. And I think the idea of like referees constantly screwing each other out of clean results and good finishes, it works well. So I'm excited to see this and see how it plays into it. It adds an element of unpredictability to what I was originally thinking would just be a convincing start. Well, not convincing, but like Styles winning and then just moving on. But it'd be weird. If Owens wins this, he would have been a 4-time United States champion since WrestleMania.
Jesus.
Which I think is, talk about like when Charlotte and Sasha Banks are feuding over the Raw Women's Championship and trading that every few weeks. And it'd be so odd to say that. But this is what's happened with championships, especially on SmackDown.
And that's also what happens when they've got too many titles. When they have only a couple, like they've got the 1 world title, 2 mid-card, 1 women's, and 1 tag, they don't play hot potato as much.
No.
But when they've got more titles, then they go, okay, well, we haven't had a title change, and we have 8 titles, so let's mess this around a lot. Like 1 title can sacrifice this, that kind of thing. But
it just feels really odd. That sounds like the completely opposite way that it should be. Surely if you've only got like a few number of titles, then there's so many people that could be competing for those championships, you surely would be switching out more because, this guy's doing really well, so we've got to give him the title. But no, this guy's now doing really well. Now with the roster split, you should have like, okay, we can give this guy a bit of a run with the title for a few months and then we might switch on to this person. But they clearly they're trying to do a lot of shock value things at the moment. So I wouldn't be surprised if Owens wins the title again.
That's the thing. It's like, at this point, they've switched the titles back and forth between them so many times. I'm not even confident in saying that either of them are going to win.
Yeah. I could see Owens winning the title tonight and then losing it to Chad Gable the next night. That's gotten to that point.
I see that too. Yeah,
it's gotten to that point. But
I'm going to stick with Styles though. Yeah, I think Styles is retaining.
Yeah, I think Styles will retain as well. Just because the Shane McMahon element makes me feel like it would be weird to have Shane score the pinfall for Kevin Owens because that would kind of make me feel like that Styles and McMahon will start feuding again, and I don't want that. Even though their match WrestleMania was good, it doesn't merit another feud between the two of them.
Yeah, he would then have to complain to Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
And then it would start another thing like that again. But Kevin Owens complaining to Shane McMahon, it could be a different story.
Yeah, it's a fresh new thing for that.
Yeah, he could just bitch and complain, then it could be like, you're fucking me over and I don't like this and whatever. And then either he gets moved over to Raw with the Superstar shakeup, or Shane McMahon's like, you need to back off and I'm going to put you in a match against whoever his next feud is, you know?
Yeah. Or you could eventually push him up into a match with Nakamura for the title, or if Nakamura wins the WWE Championship.
Yeah.
I can see that happening, like being the first feud that Nakamura has after obviously dispatching Mahal again. And then he, in the loo between, like Styles and Nakamura eventually facing off, Kevin Owens would be a good stand-in.
And then we get Kevin Owens versus Shane McMahon, Hell in a Cell.
I wouldn't be against that, to be honest.
Well, we have one more match. If this is going to be a one-match card, it's this one.
The
Universal Championship Fatal 4-Way. Brock Lesnar defending it against Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, and Braun Strowman. And I am nervous as fuck about this match.
I'm surprised. I'm quite calm.
Well, see, I'm really looking forward to it.
Oh, it'll be a great match. I'm almost certain it's going to be a great match.
And to a certain extent, I'm a fan of all four of these guys. I think Brock Lesnar is a fun draw, but he's overrated. And I think he's overprotected and he's overvalued. I think.
But at least he's over.
He is over.
Yeah.
And it's like I can't deny he is like at that top tier.
Yeah.
And Roman Reigns is a guy that they just don't want to fucking listen. That's just problematic. But I do like Roman Reigns as a main eventer. And I do like Roman Reigns.
I think Roman Reigns has been great the last few months. I think since beating The Undertaker at WrestleMania, I think his character has evolved. I know a lot of people saying that he's still not fully healed, so they're not going to rest until he is. But I think he's finding the middle ground that he kind of rested in at the moment. And I think he's putting on the best matches on pay-per-views. Like he's putting best matches on TV constantly as well. He's one of my like MVPs for 2017 so far, which I didn't think I'd be saying at the Royal Rumble. But moving on from that point, yeah. He's really been delivering.
Well, credit where it's due too. He's also been having great matches with Braun Strowman, and Strowman's some dude that's been just making leaps and bounds improvements.
Yeah, 100%. He's
my favorite guy going on at Raw at the moment.
Yeah, he's definitely one of the biggest drawing aspects in terms of like something positive that's happening on either show at the moment.
And then you got Samoa Joe. He just did his big thing with Brock Lesnar, and that went over really, really well.
Yeah, he's on fire at the moment.
If you buy the whole rumors flying around, it's that Paul Heyman wants Samoa Joe to win the title.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I get nervous about things. I have said this over and 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 over again. I do not want Brock Lesnar holding this fucking championship and dropping it to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. Under no circumstances. And I haven't changed my mind about that at all. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I'll give it a couple of months. You'll see how they work things out. I do not want that.
I do agree with that.
I think it's a massive mistake. And I think it's a mistake not just for the Universal title, but I think it's a mistake for WrestleMania. I think it's a mistake for Roman Reigns. I think it's a mistake for Brock Lesnar. And what makes me nervous is that Paul Heyman threw out this idea this week that when somebody beats Brock Lesnar, he's going to have to be the guy that you know, that you can look at and you can say, that's the guy. And I think that that's WWE rhetoric, where they're sitting there going, no, we don't want Lesnar to lose in this fatal 4-way. We want him to lose to Roman Reigns at WrestleMania so you can all bow down to Roman Reigns. And I'm nervous about that.
Yeah.
But I'm also a little bit nervous that they booked this fatal 4-way over the past couple of months because it seemed like they were building towards Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. They had Roman Reigns announce that he was going to be fighting the champion. And then we started hearing this stuff about UFC. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you know what? There's that whole thing with the USADA testing pool and that he would be able to fight in December. Well, what if Brock Lesnar does that whole thing where they have him lose and he quote-unquote leaves WWE, like Paul Heyman's teasing, doesn't show up on WWE television for a while, ends up using that time to train for UFC. He fights for UFC. They renegotiate a contract afterward, depending on whether or not he was successful, what UFC wants, whatever. WWE tries to bring him in for WrestleMania next year. Well, essentially, he's contracted anyway. So either Lesnar forfeits the money that he'd be making for the rest of the year, or they have him appear for WrestleMania anyway. But he loses his match, and he loses it because somebody else pinned somebody else. And that way, they can have Lesnar lose the title, but he doesn't get pinned. And he keeps his momentum. He goes into UFC. He either wins or he loses. If he wins, then WWE goes, oh, and Brock Lesnar's back, and he just won this UFC fight, and he's going to kick some ass heading into WrestleMania. Or he loses, and he goes, well, fuck, I don't know what to do with UFC anymore. I guess I'll go back to WrestleMania and fucking do something big. And at that point, they've had him not lose, so he's still, like, protected and everything. And God knows who they have him fight. Fucking hope not Roman Reigns, but I'm nervous that that's the two options that we're going for here. Just either Brock Lesnar retains, and he's beaten all three of the most credible challengers against him, and we just set up him against Roman Reigns, which I don't want to see, or he loses it because he doesn't lose. And it's like, typical Brock Lesnar, you build him up, you build him up, you build him up, because somebody's going to beat him, but then nobody beats him.
Or nobody that can use it, at least.
Well, at that point, it's like, if Braun Strowman wins the title and Strowman pins Reigns, then he didn't beat Lesnar and like he doesn't get that rub. You know what I mean?
So amazing. Like, the only people that have beaten Brock Lesnar since he came back to WWE are
Cena, Undertaker, and Triple H?
And Bill Goldberg.
Oh, Goldberg, yeah.
So
Triple H beat him. Triple H doesn't need it. Cena beats him on his first night.
Yeah.
Cena doesn't need it. Undertaker beats him by low blowing him.
He doesn't need it anyway, because he's the Undertaker.
And Goldberg squashes him so that he can get squashed.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what they've done with Lesnar, in terms of like building up, using him to build up new stars. I'm going to just be straight out with this. Lesnar's going to win this match. Due to a number of factors. First of all, WWE are fucking idiots, and they pretty much announced the fact. They allowed the Barclays Center to announce that Brock Lesnar would be appearing on Raw following SummerSlam, and obviously he can't do that if he's leaving WWE, unless he obviously appears on Raw to just say so long, farewell, and does go away for a little while. But he is booked to appear at the Royal Rumble, and he is booked to appear at WrestleMania, so he's not leaving WWE in general. That doesn't mean that he is going to 100% retain the championship, but it does lean more towards those lines. There's also the Cena factor. John Cena is going to be joining Raw after SummerSlam, and a lot of people are positing the idea that we're going to see John Cena versus Brock Lesnar again at the next pay-per-view. No Mercy, I think, is the next Raw one. So I know, again, it's just like, oh god, but those matches are always big, and then if they're looking for a match that can draw outside of Lesnar defending against someone like Roman Reigns or Braun Strowman or Samoa Joe, then Cena's probably your next best bet. And Cena obviously hasn't held the Universal Championship before. He's still going for his 17th World Championship, so there's a lot of stuff that you can do with that if you do decide to have Lesnar defend the title in the next show. Beyond that point, I just don't see any of them winning the championship by pinning Lesnar in a fatal four-way or making him submit in probably more Samoa Joe's case. It's just an idea of like they will start to cancel each other out, because you can have all three of them lose and not look particularly weak because of it, because it's fatal four-way, everyone's facing each other, they can all get beaten down, Lesnar can just hit an F5 out of nowhere and pin one of them, and it doesn't make them look particularly weak or that Brock Lesnar has completely vanquished them, especially if you have someone like Strowman pretty much dominate the match and have Lesnar just escape with the championship.
Yeah, and they could always do something where it's like Strowman gets put in the coquina clutch and he kind of breaks out, and then Roman Reigns spears him and he stands up, and then he gets an F5 and then he gets pinned, and then it's like, oh, well, he only lost because he took all 3 finishers, you know?
I think Strowman's probably the least likely one to get pinned out of everybody in the match. Even if, like, I think even Lesnar's probably more likely to get pinned or defeated. And obviously I don't think he's going to lose, but I think either Reigns or Joe will take the inevitable pinfall or submission. Definitely pinfall if Lesnar wins. Yeah, I think the match will be really good. I'm probably in the minority here. I've been disappointed with the build for this. Maybe I set my bar too high, because I think the build for Lesnar versus Samoa Joe was fantastic and really cemented Joe as a big main eventer. And I think in the weeks between that and SummerSlam, Joe's actually lost a lot of steam, just due to some of the matches he's been in, due to some of the situations, the fact that, frankly, like, until this last week, Lesnar hadn't interacted with anybody really that he was going to be facing. Lesnar was just coming out at the start of the show and having Heyman cut a promo for him or beating up the Miz Taraj, whereas everyone else has been feuding with each other or fighting each other or involved in segments with each other. Lesnar's been on the outside, which is obviously usually the case for him. So it's kind of taken away, and I think the brawl in the most recent episode of Raw was pretty lackluster. They kept Strowman and Lesnar apart, which makes me think that that's the feud they've got in their mind going forward, rather than Lesnar versus Reigns. But that doesn't mean that the Universal Championship will be involved when Lesnar and Strowman have their one-on-one match. With regards to the UFC stuff as well, Lesnar is still technically retired from MMA as far as I'm aware, so I believe he has to come out of retirement, and then he's still banned by the UFC due to using performance-enhancing drugs in the previous fight. So he'd have to then take the suspension for that. Obviously, he'd use that time to train and get ready for it, and then he can go through testing, and then he'd need to have a fight prepared, probably against John Jones, but who knows. That will probably stretch beyond WrestleMania at this point, so I think the interim time he's just going to be WWE focused, or whatever he does outside of WWE, because he's only at WWE a few shows a year anyway. So
yeah, and that pisses me off.
Yeah, I know, but that's the reason why he's more of an attraction than a lot of other superstars, is because he's not on the shows every week. I know people say, like, oh, he shouldn't be champion, or like that's a big issue. I used to have a huge issue with it, thinking, oh, he's not even going to turn up, he doesn't put 100% in. And I'm going along to thinking now, it's kind of worth it, but it does need to have some sort of end goal to it. It needs to it needs to put somebody who's on the roster currently over eventually. That's been my biggest issue with Lesnar being WWE. He hasn't put anybody over. Or anybody that needs it.
When he wrestles these matches, it's like you build him up for a couple of months, and he shows up at like the Royal Rumble, and he wrestles for 35 seconds and beats the shit out of somebody, and then they go, oh, okay, well, the next person.
Well, I don't mind if he does that with certain people. Like, if there's somebody that you don't have huge hopes for, or somebody that you're okay with having them in like in a main event scene, but you don't think that they're going to be the guy or like one of the big stars. It's understandable to have just Lesnar being a conquering hero, because that makes him more of a must-see attraction. But you need to pick like one, maybe two people that are going to be the ones that actually take him down eventually. And you can't have it in the fact that it's been Cena and Triple H and The Undertaker and Goldberg, 4 people that are in their 40s, were in their 40s and 50s and didn't need victories over Lesnar because they were already established. You've got to use him eventually. I think Lesnar needs to lose to at least one of these 3 eventually in a one-on-one match.
And I'd argue you can't make it be Roman at WrestleMania, because it's just like people are going to hate it.
Well, I don't think it needs to be. Roman's over enough as it is, even though a lot of people dislike him and think that his character's all wrong. He is like one of the biggest stars on Raw. And I think he's done enough. I think giving him the victory over The Undertaker and essentially retiring The Undertaker was enough. You don't need to give him Brock Lesnar as well. So
I'd argue Strowman's the one you need to do.
Yeah, you do with Strowman. That's my choice. I think Joe has enough charisma and talent on his own to be a constant fixture in the main event. Strowman is obviously the monster, and he's done really well this year, but he needs something to cement him as like, okay, this is a guy that will be the big heel, the big monster heel for years and years to come. And being the one to beat Lesnar eventually would be the ideal way of doing that. But for now, I think Fatal 4-Way, Lesnar's best served losing the championship in a one-on-one match. So I'd keep the belt on Lesnar for now.
I would take it off of him, but I wouldn't let him just, like, I don't know. See, it's tough. They kind of write themselves in a little bit of a corner, but, like, if you told me, okay, you're stuck with this SummerSlam card, what do you do? Certain matches, I'd be like, how about I change it at the last minute? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But with the Fatal 4-Way, if you told me, like, all right, what would you do for the next couple of months? You're stuck with this Fatal 4-Way. How would you book things? I'd probably go with Lesnar loses the match. He loses the title and doesn't lose. He doesn't take the pinfall. I'd probably go with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns wins the title. Let's put it that way. Okay. Or Roman. All right, well, actually, let's switch it up. Roman or Samoa Joe wins the title.
Okay.
And then Brock Lesnar comes out on Monday Night Raw with Paul Heyman and goes, "I'm fucking pissed. I have a rematch. At No Mercy, I'm gonna fucking destroy you." And has his match against Samoa Joe or Roman Reigns, whichever one it is, and doesn't capture the title again. And takes a couple of months off. He does whatever he wants to do. He fucking sits on his farm, whatever. And eventually you build a little bit towards Strowman versus Lesnar, and then Strowman just beats Lesnar at WrestleMania. And it's like, you know, it kind of sucks for Brock Lesnar that he loses basically the last 3 matches that he's in. But I think that maybe you give him a match at the Royal Rumble where he wins and he kind of gets back a little bit of that steam and loses it at WrestleMania. But in the meantime, I want a Universal Champion.
Yeah. Yeah, I can understand that, but at this point in time, I
don't think it's going to happen.
No.
No, I'm going with Brock Lesnar's winning this match here.
Yeah. I think at this point in time, Lesnar's the right person to have the championship. Just, I don't think the Universal Championship is that necessary on Raw at the moment. And if you have him, like, I just don't want him to lose it in a match where he doesn't have to take the pinfall.
What though? If we don't have the Universal Championship popping up, they need to stop ignoring this IC title.
Yeah, I know. That's a big deal as well. I mean, I've heard a lot of people talking about how, like, The Miz should be eventually elevated up to the point of winning the WWE Championship or the Universal Championship or something along those lines. I think he works better of just treating the Intercontinental Championship at that level. Just keep it at that level. He doesn't need to win those titles anymore. But in terms of, like, the Universal Championship, Lesnar's fine for now. You need to have a clear idea in your mind of who the person out of these, whether it's one of these 3 or whether it's someone else that we haven't, like, even considered yet. Maybe they want one of the Singh brothers to take the title off him. I don't know. But have Jinder Mahal beat him. Title unification, Jinder Mahal beats Brock Lesnar. That's what I would do. But yeah, I think you choose which one of those ones you're going to run with and you have them beat Lesnar one-on-one. It could be any of them. All of them are worthy champions. But I think you need to have them beat Lesnar one-on-one.
So, finally, after 2 hours.
God damn it.
we are done the SummerSlam predictions.
Tell us in the comments if this was better than the kickoff show.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's as long as well, you factor in what we were talking about TakeOver too. It's far longer than the pre-show is going to be.
Imagine if there were 5 people on this podcast.
Oh.
we would have had to cut a lot of things short.
Even just if Waco would have been a part of it, and it would have been the discussion about Brock Lesnar, that would have been another half an hour.
We probably could have stopped him at some point because he probably would have stopped to jack off for a little while. But other than that,
yeah. So tell us what you think is going to be happening at SummerSlam. What are you excited about? What are you not excited about? Are we just bitching and complaining too much, or are you kind of in the same boat as we are, where you think that this should be better than what it is? I think it's okay to complain when you're a fan of something. I don't think that you should just be like, either you love it or you should stop watching. I don't think that should be the case. But maybe you disagree, and if so, leave a somewhat decent comment below. Don't just bitch and complain. I'm just going to remove it.
That's our job, to bitch and complain.
Yeah, that's what we do. For 2 hours, that's what we do.
Yeah,
so anything else that you want to wrap up? Anything you want to toss out for plugs or anything too?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14, and there's a lot of articles on Smark at moment. A lot of them in the build-up to SummerSlam, related to SummerSlam. We have the new triple threat coming up soon, where we'll be looking into what we're looking forward to most at SummerSlam and TakeOver, and what we're most disappointed about. And there's obviously a lot of things that fall into that category. But obviously check out our weekly segments, Battle of the Brands, Cheap Pop, Cheap Heat, Women's Wrestling Weekly, and all the other great stuff, but written by talented writers, including myself. I'm the best, just to put it that way. I'll plug myself. I'll plug myself here. I usually plug everyone else. I want to plug myself this time.
All right, guys. Well, from my side of things, obviously, if you have not hit that subscribe button on this channel, go ahead and do that as soon as you can, because that's something that you'll be able to get the notifications of the new kind of things that we post on there. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SmarkOutMoment. Stay tuned to all the other things that are going to be coming your way. That is typical for pay-per-view week, which means at the end of NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 3, we're going to be doing our post show for that. And then at the end of SummerSlam, we're going to be doing our post show for that. Nothing probably about the bracketology for Mae Young's the Mae Young Classic, not Mae Young's Classic. Mae Young's Classic car or something. Then next week, we're going to be doing our mailbag for August, which will be episode number 299. And I haven't figured out what I'm going to do for episode number 300 yet. So if you have any suggestions, what you'd like to see for some kind of like a main event topic or something like that, toss them in the comments below as well. But that's going to do us in for all this Pay-Per-Viewpoint predictions talk. Now I got a lot of editing to do. Yay! It's going to be fantastic. So you'll see these posts eventually when I'm posting them up. It's 6 o'clock now, and that'll give you an indication of how long it takes to edit and publish things. I will see you then, though, everybody. Thanks for listening. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.